Men, listen closely. Boundaries are not optional in modern dating. They are the foundation of respect, attraction, and influence. Without them, a woman can push, test, and take advantage without even realizing it. If you fail to set clear boundaries early, you risk giving away your power before the relationship even begins. Most men make the mistake of being overly accommodating, trying to impress, or ignoring subtle tests. Women notice this immediately. They feel when a man lacks structure, confidence, or self-respect, and it changes how they respond. Boundaries aren't about control or rigidity. They're about clarity and self-worth. They signal that you value yourself, your time, and your energy, and women instinctively respect that. In this video, I'm going to break down the 5 boundaries men must set early in any connection. These boundaries protect your energy, maintain your standards, and prevent you from being manipulated or undervalued. They are not complicated, but they must be consistent. Set them late, and the dynamic shifts. She takes more than you intended to give. Tests become more aggressive, and attraction diminishes. Understanding boundaries isn't just about keeping her in check. It's about keeping yourself grounded. It creates space for healthy connection and ensures you are respected from the start. Once you implement these principles, you'll notice the dynamic change immediately. You lead the energy, she matches it, and the relationship becomes balanced. 1. Time and availability. Men, the first boundary you must set early is time and availability. Your attention is one of your most valuable resources, and how you allocate it communicates your value. If you allow her to dictate your schedule or demand immediate responses constantly, you signal that your time is negotiable, and women instinctively notice. Setting this boundary starts with clarity. You determine when you are available and when you are not. You don't cancel your plans or sacrifice your priorities to accommodate every whim. Women respond positively when a man has a structured life, responsibilities, and interests outside of the connection. It communicates independence and self-respect, which are inherently attractive. Another key element is communication. Being responsive doesn't mean being reactive. You can acknowledge her messages without creating urgency or appearing desperate. For example, if she texts late at night, a man with this boundary responds thoughtfully during a time that works for him, rather than immediately dropping everything. This consistency reinforces standards. Time boundaries also include personal space. You maintain hobbies, friendships, and obligations without compromise. A woman who senses a man has a full, balanced life is more likely to invest genuinely, because she sees that his attention is earned, not freely given. Conversely, if you abandon everything for her attention, it signals a lack of boundaries, and women often take it for granted. Another subtle aspect is handling spontaneous requests. If she asks for last-minute favors, emotional support, or attention during inconvenient times, a man with clear boundaries responds according to his priorities. He doesn't overcommit or apologize unnecessarily. This demonstrates self-respect and teaches her that your energy is valuable. Time and availability boundaries also prevent emotional manipulation. Women test men subtly. Delayed responses, subtle complaints, or guilt trips. When you maintain your schedule and respond on your own terms, you prevent these tests from destabilizing your confidence. Your steadiness communicates strength and authority. Finally, setting time boundaries early establishes the tone for the entire relationship. It creates balance, ensures mutual respect, and protects your emotional investment. Women are drawn to men who are consistent, self-assured, and deliberate with their energy. By enforcing this boundary, you prevent her from walking over you and set a precedent of respect from day one. 2. Emotional availability. Men, the second boundary you must set early is emotional availability. Too often, men give their emotions away too quickly, reacting to her mood swings, insecurities, or tests before establishing their own standards. Women instinctively notice a man who is overly reactive, and without boundaries, they will push him further, taking control of the emotional dynamic. Setting this boundary begins with awareness of your own emotional state. You control how much you invest emotionally at any given stage. Early on, you remain measured and intentional in sharing feelings. You do not reveal vulnerabilities indiscriminately or overcommit emotionally before mutual alignment is clear. This creates intrigue and establishes your emotional authority. Another aspect is how you respond to drama or manipulation. Women often test emotional stability, teasing, subtle guilt, or provocative behavior. A man with clear emotional boundaries does not overreact, argue unnecessarily, or take responsibility for her feelings. Instead, he maintains calm, responds thoughtfully, and communicates clearly without losing composure. This signals strength, reliability, and self-respect. Consistency is key. Emotional boundaries must be maintained across different situations. If she pushes, withdraws, or attempts to provoke jealousy, your reaction should always reinforce stability. Over time, this teaches her that your emotional energy is not negotiable. It is valuable, and she must respect it. Physical closeness and affection are also tied to emotional boundaries. You decide when, how, and under what conditions you invest in physical intimacy. You don't let desire override your standards. This creates a balance where attraction is earned and emotional engagement is intentional, preventing her from taking advantage of your impulses. Another subtle component is listening without losing control. You can empathize and validate her experience without internalizing it or letting it dictate your own mood. Women notice a man who is grounded, able to engage with empathy, yet remains anchored in his own emotional space. Finally, setting emotional boundaries early prevents imbalance. If a woman senses a man is emotionally available on demand, she may test limits or take advantage, consciously or unconsciously. By managing your emotions intentionally, you maintain authority, attract respect, and create the conditions for a healthy, balanced connection. Men who master this boundary are in control of their emotional energy, not dictated by hers. Emotional availability, when managed with clarity and purpose, ensures that attraction, respect, and investment flow in your favor rather than being drained or misused. 3. Respect and communication. Men, the third boundary you must set early is respect and communication. This is about making it clear that disrespect, manipulation, or dismissive behavior will not be tolerated. Without this boundary, women will test limits, sometimes subtly, sometimes aggressively, and push until they see how much they can take. Establish this early, and you immediately define the standard. Respect begins with how you speak and listen. You communicate directly, calmly, and with clarity. If she crosses a line, whether through words, tone, or behavior, you address it immediately and confidently. Do not overreact or escalate, but do not let disrespect slide either. Women instinctively notice men who enforce standards through calm authority rather than emotion-driven confrontation. This boundary also includes how you handle disagreements. You do not accept constant criticism, passive aggression, or manipulation disguised as joking. You respond with clear communication, stating your position, reinforcing your boundaries, and refusing to engage in unnecessary conflict. Consistency is key. One lapse signals that the boundary is negotiable, and women will continue to test. Physical boundaries intersect with respect too. You define what is acceptable in terms of touch, personal space, and sexual behavior. You don't allow pressure, guilt, or coercion to influence your choices. Women pick up on these subtle cues, and establishing them early ensures your standards are clear before attraction develops further. Another subtle aspect is selective engagement. You choose when and how to respond to provocation or testing. Ignoring minor attempts at manipulation while addressing serious breaches of respect reinforces your authority and emotional control. Women sense the difference between weakness, passive tolerance, and disciplined enforcement. Tone and body language reinforce this boundary. Maintaining eye contact, a calm voice, and open posture communicates confidence and seriousness. Women respond more to energy than words. Your demeanor communicates that disrespect is unacceptable without needing to lecture or argue. Finally, respect and communication boundaries prevent escalation later. If set early, they create a foundation of mutual understanding. Women understand your limits, the value of your energy, and the standards expected. Violations are addressed swiftly, preventing power imbalances and ensuring the connection is rooted in alignment rather than chaos. Men who enforce this boundary naturally command authority, earn respect, and prevent being walked over. Women respond to men who define standards and communicate them clearly. This is not about control. It is about self-respect, clarity, and maintaining your position as the leader of your own energy and time. 4. Physical and sexual boundaries. Men, the fourth boundary you must set early is physical and sexual boundaries. Your body and intimacy are among your most valuable assets, and how you protect them sets the tone for respect and attraction. Without clear limits, women may push for access too soon or test your willingness to compromise your standards. Establish this boundary early, and you maintain authority, self-respect, and leverage in the dynamic. Physical boundaries start with personal space and touch. You control how, when, and where a woman can engage with you physically. If she invades your space, touches without consent, or tests your reactions, you address it immediately. Calm, deliberate enforcement signals that your energy and body are not negotiable. Women notice this and respond positively because it communicates confidence and self-respect. Sexual boundaries are equally critical. Decide what you are comfortable with and make it clear through your behavior and energy, not over-explained words. Never allow pressure, guilt, or manipulation to dictate your actions. Early enforcement prevents misunderstandings, ensures mutual respect, and builds attraction rooted in discipline rather than compliance. Another subtle aspect is pacing. A man with clear boundaries controls the timing and progression of intimacy. He matches desire with alignment and ensures that physical connection flows from mutual interest and respect. Women sense this balance and are more likely to invest emotionally and physically because your energy communicates control and standards. Your confidence and emotional control reinforce physical boundaries. If she tests your limits, you remain composed, assert your standards calmly, and redirect the dynamic if necessary. Overreacting signals weakness, ignoring the test signals permissiveness. Subtle, consistent enforcement communicates authority without drama. Boundaries also extend to sexual exclusivity. Early clarity about what you expect prevents manipulation and ensures alignment. A woman who respects this understands your standards, and it prevents her from taking liberties or assuming consent where none exists. Finally, physical and sexual boundaries protect your overall energy and investment. They prevent being walked over while simultaneously enhancing attraction. Women are drawn to men who clearly value themselves and their bodies because this communicates authenticity, discipline, and leadership. Men who master this boundary operate from authority, respect, and clarity. Women instinctively sense this energy and align their behavior accordingly. When physical and sexual boundaries are set early, the relationship dynamic is balanced, attraction deepens, and your value is unmistakably clear. 5. Standards and deal breakers. Men, the fifth and final boundary you must set early is standards and deal breakers. This is the ultimate safeguard against being walked over. Women instinctively test limits to see what a man will tolerate, and if you haven't established your non-negotiables, you risk losing control of the dynamic. Setting clear standards communicates that you are a man of value, self-respect, and purpose. Standards begin with clarity about what you will accept in behavior, communication, and respect. This includes how she treats you, how she communicates, and how she responds to tests. Any behavior that undermines your confidence or compromises your values is unacceptable. Women immediately sense when a man has firm standards versus when he is flexible to the point of weakness. Deal breakers are about non-negotiable principles. These could be dishonesty, disrespect, or disregard for your time and energy. Define these early and enforce them consistently. If she crosses a deal breaker, your response must be deliberate and aligned with your boundaries. Hesitation or inconsistency signals vulnerability and invites repeated testing. Another critical aspect is consistency in enforcement. Standards and deal breakers are meaningless if applied sporadically. Women pay attention to patterns of behavior. If you enforce rules only when convenient, they will push limits to see where you bend. Consistent enforcement communicates authority and reinforces respect. Your standards also extend to lifestyle, social interactions, and long-term alignment. Women notice when a man prioritizes his own goals, values, and responsibilities while maintaining mutual respect in the connection. A man with high standards naturally attracts women who align with his energy, creating balance and minimizing conflict. Subtle cues reinforce this boundary. Tone of voice, posture, and energy communicate seriousness. You don't need to lecture or argue. Your presence and consistency send the message that your standards are non-negotiable. Women sense this instinctively and adjust their behavior accordingly. Finally, setting standards and deal breakers protects your emotional and physical energy. It prevents manipulation, preserves self-respect, and positions you as the authority in your own life. Women respect and respond to men who have clear expectations, boundaries, and non-negotiables. This ensures attraction, alignment, and long-term balance in the relationship dynamic. Men who master this boundary operate from a position of strength, clarity, and authority. Women sense it immediately and align their behavior accordingly. Once you set your standards and enforce deal breakers early, the risk of being walked over disappears. You lead the interaction, protect your energy, and create the foundation for respect, attraction, and genuine connection. Men, now you understand the 5 boundaries that protect your energy, authority, and attraction in modern dating: time and availability, emotional availability, respect and communication, physical and sexual boundaries, and standards with deal breakers. Each one is critical, and together they form a framework that ensures women respect you rather than push or manipulate. These boundaries are not about control or rigidity. They are about clarity and self-respect. Women instinctively respond to men who enforce them consistently because they signal confidence, emotional stability, and value. When set early, boundaries prevent tests, power plays, and unnecessary drama. They establish the tone for the entire connection, ensuring alignment and mutual respect from the very beginning. Implementing these boundaries requires consistency, calm authority, and intentionality. Overreacting or enforcing them inconsistently weakens their effect. When you remain composed, deliberate, and grounded, you communicate your standards without needing to over-explain. Women sense this energy immediately and respond with increased attraction, investment, and respect. Boundaries also protect your emotional and physical energy. They prevent burnout, resentment, and imbalance. Men who enforce boundaries wisely maintain control over their own lives, set the pace in relationships, and attract women who value their presence. This creates healthier, more balanced, and fulfilling dynamics in dating. Ultimately, mastery of these 5 boundaries is mastery over the dating dynamic itself. Women notice, respect, and align to men who enforce them consistently. Your time, attention, and energy are no longer up for negotiation. They are earned, respected, and valued. Set these boundaries early. Enforce them consistently. Protect your energy. Women respond naturally to men who operate from strength, clarity, and authority. This is how you lead, command respect, and prevent being walked all over. Your presence, standards, and self-respect determine the dynamic. Not chance, not charm, and not uncertainty. This is your blueprint. Define your limits, protect your energy, and communicate your value. Once you do, women will treat you differently, respect your space, and invest in alignment with the man you choose to be. Boundaries aren't just rules. They are the foundation of attraction, influence, and a balanced, successful dating life.